Okay.
Welcome back. Okay, our water's starting to boil, and I've set the timer for an hour and 10 minutes. And you don't want the pots too full of water. I don't know if the camera can show how much water there is, but the meat's going to make the water level rise.
Oops. Found it.
Yeah.
You're on.
Oh, it's on?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Well, the meat's going to make the water level rise. So, you don't want it all the way to the top. You can always add more water and just bring it to a boil, but you don't want to have it to where it overflows. But you also don't want to walk away from this stuff and leave it. When you put it on boiling, you want to stick around, because there is no telling what this is going to do. Each batch reacts a little bit differently, and one time I had a batch that fell apart on me, and the reason it did was because my eyes aren't so good and I grabbed the wrong flour. So make sure you're using vital wheat gluten when you do it, because otherwise it falls apart in the water and you end up with broth. But I'm cutting it a little thick this time because that's what I want to do. I could have put it down and smashed it flat if I'd have wanted to. You can cut it thinner, but the one thing you can bet is if the mixture's right, it's going to expand, and it's going to expand quite a bit. That's why I say you can always add more water. I try to start off with probably a little more than, right around, a little less actually than 2/3. I add salt to it, sea salt, and bring it to a boil. And now you can see I got it boiling really fast, but what it's going to do is it's going to start reacting with the water. So what I'm going to do is watch it, and then I just tone down. It depends on the pot. I tone it down to where it boils, but it doesn't try to boil up. And don't use a lid on it, because if you use a lid, it's going to end up all over your kitchen. I know. So, anyway, I usually use a long spatula. Move it around, and it moves around quite easily, but you got to remember, you got an hour and 10 minutes that it's going to be boiling. What did I do? Did I start? I better reset it. Okay, how do I cancel? Okay. Let's see, set 1 hour. I'll do it 7. Okay. So, I like to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom right at first, because once it starts cooking, they're actually going to all start rising to the top, and it's going to get crowded at the top. But at first it cools the water down, so I leave it on high, but as it starts boiling up, then I stare at it through my fog glasses and I turn the heat down. Trying to see here if I Well, I put 4 pieces in this pot. It looks like I ended up putting more in the other pot than I wanted. So, I'm going to just grab a piece out of this one. You can see it's holding together. I put it in there. Just help keeps the balance a little more. If I had a wide pot, like we saw at the flea market yesterday, except that when we went back it was gone, it was real wide, and you could probably do all of them in just one. But as it starts to boil, it starts getting a little bit of a foam and stuff, and that's where I start toning it down a little bit when it starts foaming up and everything. I've had them stick a little bit to the bottom before. It's no big deal. It will surprise you though, because when you loosen them up, all of a sudden I guess there's heat under there, and all of a sudden it'll bubble up from where you do it. But these look like they're starting off really well. Now, as you're cooking, if you're using 2 pots, well, look at this one. It's starting to foam up. You can see what I was talking about. It's starting to foam up quite a bit. And that's when I start toning it down a little bit and just trying to get it to a point so that the foam doesn't build up, but it keeps on boiling. And you just do that, guessing. It's no big deal. This one's starting to foam up too, so it looks like I can work it down too. So, and if you turn it down too much and it stops boiling, turn it back up. Doesn't matter. It doesn't know the difference. It'll, you know. Sometimes I've cooked it a little bit longer, sometimes I've cooked it shorter. Sometimes the broth gets really thick. It actually turns into a broth, and I've saved it and made soup with it, or sometimes I put it in a container with some Seitan and just freeze it with the container. And by the way, this stuff freezes real good, and it lasts a long time in the freezer. You can thaw it out in the microwave real easy too. But you can see it's starting to react, and it changes color. It starts lightening up some. Then, when you freeze it, it actually darkens a bit. So, all that's natural. Every time I've ever made it, I end up freezing what I don't use that day, though.
So we'll be back in an hour. Right?
Well, y'all come back now, here.